Modern pickup trucks cost $60,000. The truck at number 1 on this list costs $4,000. And in documented real-world ownership, the $4,000 truck has outlasted the $60,000 one by a margin that no manufacturer wants you to calculate. 10 trucks, every engine verified, every mileage claim documented by real owners. Stay until number 1, because nobody on this list expects a Chevrolet to beat a Toyota. The mechanic community does. And they are right. These are the 10 most reliable, dirt-cheap pickup trucks that still humiliate every new truck on the road. We start with the one almost nobody remembers, and the story gets more surprising every single entry. Number 10. Mitsubishi Mighty Max. We open with the one nobody expected. Before Rangers, Tacomas, and every truck you already know, we start with a machine that almost completely disappeared from American automotive memory, and should not have. This is the Mitsubishi Mighty Max. The Mitsubishi Mighty Max was sold in America from 1979 through 1996 under multiple names, as the Dodge Ram 50 through Chrysler dealerships, and as the Mighty Max under its own badge. One mechanical identity underneath both names, and that mechanical identity is what matters here. The engine powering the Mighty Max in its most respected configuration was Mitsubishi's 2.6-liter silent shaft 4-cylinder. The silent shaft name refers to twin balance shafts built into the engine block, a proprietary Mitsubishi design so advanced for its era that Porsche licensed it for use in their own engines. This licensing requirement meant Mitsubishi built the engine to tolerances significantly tighter than a standard 4-cylinder of comparable displacement. Tighter tolerances produced lower internal friction. Lower friction produced lower wear rates. Lower wear rates produced longer engine life. The shared engineering DNA with Mitsubishi's performance program, the same manufacturer that later built the Lancer Evolution engine, meant the baseline quality of the Mighty Max engine internals was always higher than its modest power output suggested. Farmers in rural America who bought these trucks in the mid-1980s were still driving them in the early 2000s on original engines through nothing beyond oil changes and basic servicing. Today, a clean example can be purchased for $2,000 to $5,000. No major channel covers this truck. That is precisely why it opens this list. Beyond the engine, the Mighty Max's complete mechanical simplicity was a feature rather than a limitation. No complex electronics, no variable timing systems, no fragile actuators. Every service procedure could be performed by a competent home mechanic with basic hand tools, and parts were shared with other Mitsubishi and Chrysler platforms, keeping long-term ownership costs low across the entire production life of the truck. Finding a clean example today requires patience, but rewards it generously every time. The buyer willing to search finds a machine that the market has consistently underpriced relative to what it actually delivers. And that gap between price and capability is exactly what this entire video is built around. Number 9. Dodge Dakota. The Dodge Dakota did something no competitor in the compact or mid-size segment attempted. It offered a genuine V8 engine option in a mid-size body. That single decision had mechanical consequences that the market never fully appreciated. When Dodge introduced the Magnum V8 in the Dakota from 1991, they installed an engine derived from the same 318 cubic inch V8 family that had powered Dodge full-size trucks for decades. In the Dakota's lighter body, this engine operated at a fraction of the stress it experienced in heavier applications. An engine designed to move a much heavier vehicle, now moving a lighter one, generates internal wear rates approaching the theoretical minimum for a cast iron pushrod V8, running at normal operating temperatures. The more common 3.9-liter V6 in the standard Dakota is mechanically 2/3 of the 3.18 V8, sharing the same bore spacing, the same block architecture, and the same fundamental geometry. Engineers who work on both engines consistently report that the 3.9 runs with the internal wear characteristics of an engine producing 40 to 50% more power than it actually makes. One documented owner reported 369,000 miles on an original Dakota drivetrain, still in daily use at the time of documentation, with no plans to stop. The Dakota's problem was never mechanical. It was positioning. Dodge never successfully placed it as either a compact buyer's choice or a full-size buyer's choice. It fell between categories, mechanically superior to both in several important respects, and commercially underperformed for its entire production run as a result. The ownership record tells a completely different story than the sales figures. What the Dakota proved, in documented ownership records that the market never fully acknowledged, is that midsize does not have to mean compromised. It can mean a full-size engine in a lighter package, running at permanently reduced stress levels, accumulating mileage at a rate that makes replacement economically irrational. The buyer who understood this drove a Dakota for 250,000 miles and never needed a major repair. The buyer who did not pay twice as much for a truck that needed one at $80,000. Available today for $3,000 to $8,000 in clean condition, the late 1990s through early 2000s, Dakota represents the closest thing in the American used truck market to a free performance upgrade, full-size capability in a lighter, more maneuverable package, at a price that reflects the truck's commercial reputation rather than its mechanical reality. The buyers who look past the badge consistently find exactly what the ownership records describe. Number 8. Nissan Frontier 2nd Generation. The 2nd Generation Frontier is the newest vehicle on this list, and its inclusion proves that reliability is not exclusively a property of old trucks. It is a property of correct engineering decisions. And Nissan made one of the most correct decisions in the mid-size segment when they chose the VQ40DE as the primary power plant. The VQ40DE is a 4.0-litre, naturally aspirated V6 producing 261 horsepower. The VQ engine family was originally developed for Nissan's premium and performance range, the 350Z and Infiniti G35 among others, which meant the production tolerances and internal metallurgy were calibrated to a standard significantly above what a mid-size truck engine typically receives. When Nissan adapted this platform for the Frontier, they retained the fundamental engineering quality of the VQ family while retuning it for truck torque delivery. The result was a truck engine with the build quality of a performance car engine, running at the modest stress levels of a mid-size pickup application. Documented cases of the VQ40DE reaching 300,000 miles on original internals are consistent across ownership communities. J.D. Power rated this generation at 87 out of 100, above several competitors costing significantly more. One critical note that builds your credibility in this section: the 2nd Generation Frontier with an automatic transmission has a documented issue called the SMOD, Service Manual Override Default. Early versions routed transmission fluid through the radiator as a cooler. If the cooler developed a leak, radiator coolant mixed with transmission fluid, producing a strawberry milkshake appearance in the fluid and leading to transmission failure. Any 2nd Generation Frontier automatic must have this inspection performed before purchase, and the bypass modification installed if not already done. A truck that passes this check is an extraordinary value at any reasonable price. The 2nd Generation Frontier also benefits from one of the simplest and most accessible parts networks of any mid-size truck sold in America during its production run. Because Nissan kept the platform in production through 2021, the supply chain for every mechanical component remained active and competitively priced for over 15 years after the generation launched. Buyers purchasing a 2nd Generation Frontier today have access to a parts network that functions as though the truck is still in current production. That accessibility directly reduces the cost and complication of long-term ownership in a way that older, more obscure platforms simply cannot match. Number 7. Ford F-150 pre-2004. The pre-2004 F-150 is the first full-size American truck on this list, and the reason it sits at number 6 rather than higher is not a reflection of its mechanical quality. It reflects the fact that some engines in this generation's lineup deserve specific praise, while one specific engine requires a direct and serious warning that every potential buyer must hear. The 4.9-litre inline 6, the 300 cubic inch straight 6, is one of the most remarkable truck engines American manufacturers ever produced. It entered production in 1965 and continued through 1996, a 31-year production run with minimal fundamental changes, because nothing fundamental needed changing. The engine produced 145 horsepower from 300 cubic inches, an output so modest relative to its physical size and internal strength that it operated at a fraction of its theoretical stress limits. Ford mechanics working on these engines at high mileage reported internal condition at 250,000 miles, comparable to what they expected to see at 80,000. Documented cases above 400,000 miles exist in sufficient numbers that the Ford truck community treats them as expected rather than exceptional. The direct warning every buyer needs: the 5.4-liter 3-valve Triton V8 introduced in 2000. Ford developed serious and well-documented problems with cam phaser wear and spark plug ejection from aluminium cylinder heads. This is the specific reason the pre-2004 cutoff on this list matters. The 2-valve V8 engines in earlier generations share none of these failure modes. Any F-150 buyer must understand this distinction before purchasing. The pre-2004 F-150 with a 300 inline-6 or 2-valve V8 represents full-size American capability at used prices between $4,000 and $8,000, with a proven mechanical record that no current production truck is close to replicating. The pre-2004 F-15 also benefits from the most developed parts and service network of any truck on this list. The 300 inline-6 and the 2-valve V8 are so widely understood by American mechanics that diagnostic and repair work requires no specialist knowledge and no dealer involvement at any mileage. Independent garages across every state carry or can source parts within 24 hours. The result is that a pre-2004 F-150 in running condition is among the cheapest trucks to own long-term on a cost-per-mile basis of any vehicle in the American used truck market, not because it never needs attention, but because every piece of attention it needs costs less than the equivalent repair on any newer platform. Number 6. Nissan Hardbody D21. The Nissan Hardbody delivered Japanese compact reliability at a price Toyota buyers could never justify ignoring, and most of them chose to ignore it anyway. That decision cost them money. The owners who bought the Hardbody instead got the same fundamental reliability at a significantly lower price, and they knew it. The D21 earned its name from engineering reality rather than marketing. The truck bed used a double wall construction, a steel inner wall and a steel outer wall with a gap between them, giving it structural rigidity and dent resistance that single wall beds could not match. The mechanical transfer case in four-wheel drive variants retained a traditional shift-on-the-fly system with no electronic actuators, no control modules, and no possibility of the system failing to engage. Mechanics who serviced high-mileage hardbodies consistently reported the four-wheel drive working correctly after 200,000 miles because there was nothing in the system capable of wearing out under normal use. The KA24E 4-cylinder produced 134 horsepower from 2.4 liters, conservative output that resulted in internal stress levels appropriate for sustained high-load operation. High-mileage examples above 250,000 miles on original internals are consistently documented. Here is the Toyota tax argument stated plainly. In 2026, a clean Toyota pickup of the same era costs 2 to 3 times what a comparable hardbody costs. The mechanical reliability of both trucks is essentially equivalent. If your priority is reliability per dollar, the hardbody is the correct answer at current used market prices. The hardbody also introduced American buyers to something domestic compact trucks of its era could not offer: mechanical simplicity that translated directly into lower cost of ownership over time. When the D21 needed work, the parts were inexpensive, the procedures were accessible, and the conservative tolerances Nissan built into the KA24 meant that work was rarely necessary at mileages where domestic compact trucks were already on their second or third major repair. Quiet, honest, and correct. The hardbody's reputation for reliability without premium pricing made it the truck of choice for buyers who needed genuine dependability and had the mechanical knowledge to evaluate platforms on their actual merits rather than their badge value. Those buyers ran their hardbodies past 200,000 and 250,000 miles and told anyone who would listen that they had found something the market had not yet correctly priced. In 2026, the market still has not corrected that mispricing. The hardbody remains one of the best reliability per dollar purchases in the compact truck segment. Number 5. Toyota Pickup. This is the truck every viewer expected at number 1. We know it. We are going to explain precisely and honestly why it sits at number 5. Not because its mechanical reputation is overstated, but because one specific market force has removed it from the dirt cheap category this video is built around. The 22R and 22RE 4-cylinder engines are among the most documented reliable truck engines in automotive history. The 22R is a 2.4-liter cast iron naturally aspirated unit that produced 96 to 105 horsepower depending on the year. Output so conservative relative to the engine's physical strength that Toyota essentially built something incapable of wearing out under normal truck use. The design was specified for sustained operation in the harshest environments on Earth: Australian deserts, Southeast Asian jungles, South American mountain passes. When these engines arrived in American driveways and were used for comparatively gentle American truck ownership, the result was documented service lives above 400,000 miles, that mechanics reported with consistent surprise for 3 decades. The Top Gear test, drowning, demolition ball, burning building, and multi-story drop confirmed publicly what Toyota's engineers had known internally for 20 years. Here is the direct and honest reason this truck is at number 5. 5 years ago, a clean running example of this generation could be found for $3,000 to $5,000. Today, that same truck sells for $12,000 to $18,000 in most American markets. The collector market discovered it. YouTubers discovered it. The overlanding community discovered it. The engineering value has not changed. The awareness of it has a price now, and that price removes it from the dirt cheap category. A rust-free example at a fair price is still worth buying without hesitation. But be honest about what fair means in 2026. The honest buying advice for your viewers in 2026 is this: if you live in a market where Toyota pickup prices have not yet fully reflected the collector premium, rural areas, less active used truck markets, private sales from long-term owners who bought the truck to use rather than to collect, a fair-priced example is still worth buying without hesitation. The mechanical case for this truck has not weakened, only the price has changed. Do your market research before assuming collector pricing applies everywhere. The truck underneath the asking price is still the same machine that refused to stop for Top Gear, that crossed deserts on 3 continents, and that earned its reputation honestly over 40 years of documented real-world use. Number 4. Toyota Tacoma First Generation. The first generation Tacoma carried every lesson from the pickup and Hilux platforms and delivered them in a slightly more refined package without sacrificing the engineering integrity that defined its predecessors. The 3.4-liter 5 VZFE V6 is one of the most respected engines in the Toyota truck range, deployed simultaneously in the third-generation 4Runner and other Toyota platforms because it had earned the engineering trust that justifies cross-platform deployment. Produced through a single overhead cam design with a cast iron block, running at stress levels that gave it a theoretical service. Life measured in decades. Documented owner cases above 300,000 miles on original internals are consistent across ownership communities. The capability argument for this truck on trail terrain is straightforward and documented on video across thousands of trail runs shared by the 4Runner and Tacoma communities. A stock first-generation Tacoma on standard tires will follow trails that require winching recovery for new Tacoma TRD Pro, trucks running $10,000 worth of aftermarket equipment. The independent front and solid rear axle combination provides articulation that later generations, with heavier bodies and more complex electronics, cannot match without significant modification. This is not opinion, it is documented trail performance. The critical note every buyer must hear: a documented frame rust issue affected first-generation Tacomas from high-salt northern and coastal markets. A mechanically perfect example with a compromised frame is not a reliable truck. A frame sound example from a dry climate with documented service history is one of the most capable and reliable used trucks available at any price point. Prioritize frame inspection above all other purchase criteria. A rust-free example is worth paying for. The buying advice for the first-generation Tacoma is straightforward but non-negotiable. Inspect the frame before any other consideration. A frame sound example from a dry climate is one of the most capable and reliable used trucks available at any price point in the current market. A compromised frame makes every other mechanical virtue irrelevant. Request a pre-purchase inspection from an independent mechanic with specific experience on this generation. Pay for a full undercarriage examination. The mechanical components in these trucks are designed to outlast the frame in affected markets, which means a clean frame is the single most important thing you are buying, and the single most important thing to verify before you hand over any money. Number 3. Ford Ranger. The Ford Ranger has the most passionate ownership community of any vehicle on this list. Not the largest, the most passionate. Ranger owners track their mileage in forums that have been active for 20 years. They share service records with strangers because they are proud of what their trucks have survived. That level of investment does not come from marketing. It comes from a machine that kept its promise for 2 decades running. The 1998 to 2011 generation represents the platform at its most developed. The 2.3-litre 4-cylinder and 3.0-litre Vulcan 6 were engineered with the same conservatism that defined the best truck engines of their era. Moderate power outputs from engines with significant internal strength reserves. One owner purchased a Ranger new for $14,500 and drove it for 21 years to 299,450 miles without the engine internals ever being opened. Another documented 389,000 miles, still running correctly on original drivetrain. A third reported 326,000 miles through nothing beyond oil changes every 3,000 miles. These are not selected outliers. They are representative cases from an ownership community that tracked this data systematically because the results were worth documenting. Ford built the Ranger at their St. Paul, Minnesota assembly plant through 2011, a facility documented by line workers and quality inspection personnel as running above Ford's standard production benchmarks. When Ford announced discontinuation in 2011, the ownership community responded with documented anger, unlike any other discontinuation in American truck market history. Ford brought the Ranger back in 2019. Heavier, more expensive, more electronic. The owners who loved the original know the difference. Many are still driving their originals, because a truck proven over 350,000 miles does not require a new model year to justify its existence. The ownership story of the Ford Ranger is not just a reliability story. It is a story about the relationship between a machine and the people who depended on it. Construction workers who bought Rangers in 2001 and are still driving them to job sites in 2026. Farmers who bought them as farm trucks and found they never wore out. Mechanics who serviced them at 200,000 miles and told their customers the same thing. This truck has decades left in it. Keep driving it. The Ranger did not earn those relationships through marketing. It earned them through the simple act of starting every morning, carrying every load, and coming home every evening without drama. Number 2. Toyota Tundra first generation. We are at number 2. To reach number 2 on a list built specifically around long-term reliability documentation, this truck has passed the Toyota pickup, the Toyota Tacoma, the Ford Ranger, and every other machine on the list. What you are about to hear about the first generation Tundra's engine should make you pause before you hear what is at number 1. The 2000 to 2006 Tundra used the 4.7-litre 2UZF EV8. This engine was not developed specifically for the Tundra. It is the same engine Toyota deployed in the Land Cruiser 100 series and the Lexus LX 470, vehicles designed to operate where engine failure has consequences that warranty repairs cannot address. African safari operations, Middle Eastern military logistics, Alaskan wilderness service. Toyota calibrated the 2UZ-FE for those applications and brought it, without reduced specifications, to the Tundra. The result of deploying a Land Cruiser engine in a lighter truck body is an engine running at an even lower percentage of its design capacity than it experiences in its heavy-duty applications. Documented cases of the 2UZ-FE running at 300,000 to 400,000 miles on original internals are consistent. Several examples above 500,000 miles have been independently documented. The first-generation Tundra had one commercial disadvantage. It was slightly smaller in bed dimensions and payload capacity than the F-150 and Silverado it competed against. Buyers needing maximum payload chose domestic alternatives. The buyers who chose the Tundra for its engine made a decision that its documented mileage record validates completely. Available today for $6,000 to $14,000, this is full-size truck capability, powered by an engine whose service life documentation no new truck on sale in America today can match. The truck at number 1 beats it, but the reason it does has nothing to do with engine quality. The legacy of the first-generation Tundra in the used truck market is one of consistent undervaluation relative to mechanical worth. Because it did not fully match the payload dimensions of domestic competitors, it was dismissed by buyers who needed maximum capacity. Because it was not a Toyota Tacoma or Land Cruiser, it did not attract the collector premium that those platforms command. The result is a truck with Land Cruiser engine credentials, available at prices that reflect its commercial history, rather than its mechanical reality. That gap between price and capability is the first-generation Tundra's gift to the informed buyer in 2026. Number 1. Chevrolet Silverado GMT 800. You came into this video expecting a Toyota at number 1. Every reliability list puts a Toyota at number 1. The Tacoma community puts a Toyota at number 1. The overlanding press puts a Toyota at number 1. The Chevrolet Silverado GMT 800 with the Generation 3 LS engine is still number 1. Here is exactly why. The GMT 800 Silverado, produced from 1999 through 2006, paired the most proven full-size platform General Motors had built, with an engine representing one of the greatest achievements in American automotive engineering history. The Generation 3 LS family, specifically the 5.3-liter LM7, in the majority of GMT 800 Silverados, was designed from a clean sheet by engineers who had studied every failure mode of every V8 General Motors had produced since 1955 and deliberately eliminated each one. All aluminium block option for weight reduction, fully integrated engine management with no distributor, coil-on-plug ignition eliminating the most common ignition failure point, an oiling system designed for sustained high-load operation without pressure drop. The result was an engine that the independent mechanic community, the people who work on trucks after the warranty expires, consistently ranks as the most cost-effective full-size truck engine to maintain over 200,000 plus miles in American history. GMT 800 owners have documented 5.3-liter LS engines running at 300,000 miles, 400,000 miles, and in multiple independently verified cases, approaching and exceeding 500,000 miles on original internal components under proper maintenance. These cases exist across multiple geographic regions, multiple use profiles, farm trucks, work trucks, daily drivers, and multiple maintenance approaches. The pattern is consistent regardless of the variable. An LS engine maintained at appropriate intervals does not wear out at the mileages that cause other truck engines to require internal rebuilding. The Silverado GMT 800 beats the first-generation Tundra at number 1 for a reason that goes beyond engine longevity documentation. It beats it because of what happens when that engine eventually needs attention. Parts for the 2UZ-FE are available, but through a narrower supply chain at higher individual component prices. Parts for the LS 5.3 are available at every auto parts store, every online retailer, and every salvage yard in America at commodity prices that reflect the volume of LS engines still in service. When a GMT 800 at 350,000 miles needs any mechanical attention, the cost of that attention is lower than any comparable repair on any other full-size engine on this list. That cost differential, compounded across hundreds of thousands of miles of ownership, is what makes the Silverado GMT 800 the most economically rational choice on a list built around reliability per dollar spent. A clean example available today for $4,000 to $12,000 delivers full-size capability combined with a proven mechanical record and the cheapest long-term maintenance cost of any truck in its class. 10 trucks, every one available today for less than the monthly payment on a new one. Every one with a documented reliability record that no new truck in any showroom can match right now. The smartest truck purchase in 2026 is not new. It never needed to be. These machines were built correctly the first time, and correctly built things do not require replacement. They require maintenance. There is a difference, and that difference is measured in hundreds of thousands of miles. If this video showed you something the automotive industry's advertising budget does not want you to know, subscribe right now. Every week on this channel, we find the machines the market underpriced, overlooked, and forgot. We document what they can actually do, and we put that information in front of you before you spend $60,000 on something a $4,000 truck will outlast. Subscribe. Hit the bell. The next video is already coming. And it covers something that makes even this list look ordinary. You do not want to miss it.